I just read a great line about breathing by Citron on the Concept 2 forum. One simple rule, in then out from the day you're born until the day you die. It's a great rule for life, but when you're rowing, more than just to keep you alive, how you breathe during the stroke can play a big part in how you feel and how you perform. I want you to do a test for me while I go through this next bit. Breathe in so you half fill your lungs with air and then hold your breath for as long as you can. Obviously don't do this if you're driving or have any medical condition that would make this a bad idea, but keep holding your breath until you feel you need to take another breath. Anyway, really there are two things to consider when it comes to rowing and breathing. When do you breathe and how many breaths do you want to take per stroke? How many breaths you take usually comes down to your stroke rate and how fast you're rowing. For instance, when doing a long, slow row at 18 strokes per minute, if you want to be really controlled and you have a strong cardio system, you may just want to take one breath per full stroke. But as fatigue sets in, or during a fast sprint at something like 30 strokes a minute, it may be that you want to take one full breath from the drive through to the finish, and then one full breath on the recovery, in order to get that carbon dioxide out of your system and replace it with oxygen. And that last bit is why I asked you to hold your breath. Although you need to fuel your blood with oxygen when rowing, it's just as important to get the carbon dioxide out of your blood. So, when holding your breath at the point when you couldn't hold it any longer, what happened? Did you breathe in, gasping for oxygen? I'm going to assume that actually no, you breathed out first. Your body needed to get that carbon dioxide out before taking in more oxygen, even though you still had room in your lungs to take in more oxygen first. So don't think about breathing as just gasping for air in. Make space to get it back out again. And if you breathe out forcefully, it helps to get more CO2 out of your lungs. It recruits your intercostal muscles, and it's a great way to really focus on the rhythm of your breath. After all, concentrating on your breath when you're rowing so you can take comfortable full breaths instead of short, shallow breaths can be the first big step towards proper breathing. Ideally then, you want to find a rhythm where you can take in as much oxygen as you need while also getting the carbon dioxide out completely, so you're not rushing through the breath. But you also want to coordinate your breathing with your rowing stroke. Rowing is after all about repeating a range of motion, flowing from phase to phase. So finding a breathing pattern which helps to reinforce that rhythm instead of random and syncopated against that rhythm can help the flow of your stroke. The time spent on both parts of the breathing phase certainly has a big impact on this, and this continues to be affected by stroke rate and pace. As your performance goes up, so does your oxygen requirement. Maybe you can get away with one full breath per stroke at 18 strokes per minute, but you may need to increase that to 2 breaths when rowing at full speed during a 2K race. So if you're trying to create a rhythm, that brings up the most often discussed topic. When is it best to fill your lungs up with air? When your body is opening chest wide and lungs able to fill up with ease, or when you're compressed with your knees up at your chest? Two choices, lots of opinions. Just Google breathing for rowing and you'll find some folks who say breathe in at the leg drive and some folks who say breathe out at the leg drive. A lot of rowers approach breathing at the drive phase the same way they would when lifting weights. You take a deep breath before, to help brace the core, engage the weight, then as you power through the lift, breathe out explosively. And as the initial drive of the legs in the stroke is similar to a deadlift, pushing the legs into the foot plate to generate lots of power into the stroke, exhaling as you start the leg drive does seem to make sense. But you're not trying to fuel your blood for one maximal explosive lift. You're trying to make sure you repeatedly get enough oxygen to enable hundreds of strokes efficiently. What about the opposite then, breathing in as you drive with the legs? Well, this makes more sense from the point of view of taking in air as your upper body is opening, the expansion promoting your chest and posture to be big and strong, instead of fighting against the collapsing frame as you exhale through the drive. Let's not forget about the other half of the breath though. It's not just the inhale that matters. Like I said, you also need to get the carbon dioxide out. And when you take your breath in quite obviously affects when you breathe out. When do you think it's best to get the air out of your chest? When it's opening and expanding, or when it's compressing? From a mechanical point of view, it makes sense to exhale as you slide into the catch, your body compressing like a pair of bellows, squeezing shut, rather than inhaling at this stage, trying to fill up a closing space. The thing is though, that's all very good from a biomechanical point of view, but I'll say again, when you start to consider stroke rate and pace, it may be that you need to alter your breathing to suit. For instance, when I'm rowing at a low rate, like 18 strokes a minute, I'll breathe in on the leg drive and then out on the recovery, doing it all in one breath. But when I'm rowing at faster stroke rates, 24 and above, I inhale on the drive and then explode out and exhale as I finish with the pull of the handle into my chest. I then take a full in-out breath through the recovery, with my lungs emptying as I slide into the catch. The one caveat I'll make though is actually how my breathing changes when I'm rowing while recording one of my RowAlong workouts. The speed here comes from the higher stroke rate and more power from your body. In order to be able to talk to you while I row the session, I need to breathe out at the drive phase, regardless of what stroke rate I'm rowing at. Which means I need to mentally kind of flick a breathing switch and unlearn that pattern when rowing on my own and not talking to someone at the same time, which is surprisingly easy to do. But then maybe that's the point here, that our bodies will adapt to what we need them to do. I know for sure that when I get to the last minute of a 2K race, I'm not thinking about controlled breathing. I'd breathe through my ears if I could get more air in. Quite neatly, that brings me on to how to maximize the amount of air you can get into your lungs. For a start, think about belly breathing. Lie or sit comfortably. Rest one hand on your chest and one on your stomach. Then breathe in through your nose, concentrating on your belly filling up smoothly with air. Your chest shouldn't rise by much. And then to exhale, just relax and breathe out through your mouth. You should feel the hand on your stomach fall as you do this. This is how babies breathe. It's only through posture and tight clothing that we've kind of unlearned this and we start breathing with our chests expanding. But if nature isn't enough for you and you want a piece of tech to improve your breathing, you can also use resistance training for your lungs using a device like the Power Breathe. This makes it harder to suck in the air. It's basically like a bicep curl for your lungs. Training with this a couple of times a day and making the resistance progressively harder, like throwing another 10 onto your barbell, will make your ability to suck in fresh air a lot more powerful. With all this talk about performance when you breathe during the stroke, it's easy to forget that your breath also plays a huge role in relaxation. During a row, if you start to tense up and see your heart rate climb, just take a moment to concentrate on your breath. Think about the rhythm, concentrate on comfortably taking in air and getting that CO2 back out of your lungs. This focus can really help get your heart rate back under control, and the relaxation it promotes can often help you get back onto the right pace if that had been falling. Full breaths aren't just for when you're actually rowing either. Breathing can help you get settled and then ready pre-race. If you suffer from an overactive mind before a race like I do, worrying about what's about to happen and need to center yourself, try box breathing. This means breathing in for 4 seconds and then holding it for 4 seconds, then breathe out for 4 seconds and finally holding it for 4 seconds before repeating the process. Breathing like this taps into your parasympathetic system through your vagus nerve, and 2 minutes of box breathing should make you all settled. An extra tip while you're doing this is to focus on something as far away as possible. Let your gaze travel and open your field of view, also proven to help settle nerves. An extra tip is to lightly run your fingers over your lips while you do this, which also taps into that vagus nerve. Don't worry about what you look like. I've made enough ridiculous faces in the middle of a 2K race, lightly touching my lips doesn't even come close. Pre-race breathing isn't just about calming your mind though. Breathing techniques as you're sitting on the machine ready to start can also be very beneficial physically. Once you've checked your drag factor and you're warmed up and ready to go, there's sometimes a small wait before the race starts. At this stage, as you begin to go through the race in your mind, It's easy for your body to tense up and go into fight or flight mode, going into a protection state. So, sit there on the machine and take in as large a breath as you can. Breathe in, and when you think you're done, breathe in a little more. And then explode out all that air from your lungs in one forceful move. This time trying to force out every last bit of air from your lungs, which should make you contract your core while you're doing so. Amazingly, this is like a sit rep for your body. This breathing exercise activates all the stabilizing muscles in the core, and it sends a message to your brain that your body is primed and ready for action. It doesn't need to protect itself, it's ready for a fight. 2,000 meters later, you may feel like you're on the wrong end of that fight, but you'll have been powerful from the start instead of tense and on the back foot. After all, it's at times like those that you really need every last bit of help to get you through the race as strong as you can, for as long as you can. Breathing may be an automatic process that you rarely need to think about, but when you take a moment to work on the timing and efficiency of your breathing when rowing, you'll be amazed at how it can settle you down. Where once you may have been tense and tight, the right breathing pattern can settle you into a good, relaxed rowing rhythm. And if you're thinking about breathing from a performance point of view, be sure to examine how when you breathe affects your power output, as well as how it can assist your cardio efficiency over longer rows. For instance, say you were doing an interval session of 1 minute on, 1 minute off at 20 strokes per minute, trying to get all of the power you could out of your legs and your whole body for that matter. That's a good time to kind of look at whether breathing out on the drive or breathing in on the drive makes a difference for your power output. Now, I'm going to try and have a go at this now, so just follow along with me for the time being. First one, I'm going to be breathing out on the leg drive.
Now, I'm doing this on fresh legs and lungs, so the impact of fatigued muscles and cardio doesn't come into play in this test. And it's important to look at the performance over an entire interval instead of just a snapshot, so you can gauge how breathing can help or hinder that fatigue.
So it's kind of 146 to 148, depending on what stroke you took there. Now I'm going to try doing that breathing in when I do the leg drive. So here we go. Whoops. Try holding onto the handle.
Remember, I'm doing this on fresh legs. Coming back to this and comparing the breathing after another 10 intervals may show different results. But right now, there's really not much in it.
But really, when it comes down to it, as long as you are comfortable and you think you are performing how you want to, then it doesn't really matter what other people say about when to breathe or how many breaths to take per stroke. Find a pattern that works for you, and maybe what you've watched in this video today will help you think about how to examine the way you breathe when you row. So that's it for breathing. This certainly isn't the last breath on breathing though. The fact that there are so many opinions and voices on this is partly because there's no right way for everyone at every occasion. What works for one person may not work for you. But do let me know what you do and what you think in the comments for this video. And if you're interested in seeing how I can row and talk at the same time, please check out the RowAlong workouts I have on this YouTube channel. All free, no music, just a good workout and some tips and a few dinner plans from me. Thanks so much for watching, stay safe, be well, bye bye.